Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Donna Feazell, and I'm your host of Donna's Edge Talk Show, where truth matters. Thank you so much for watching every day, Monday through Friday, beginning at 1 p.m. Central Time, as I get to ride home with you in the afternoon. It's always a fun ride. You can find us on television, Channel 182 Charter, and we are syndicated on Abundant Television, found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. And don't forget the podcast now on the newscasters.com. So we're so excited about all of our venues, Facebook. If it's social media, we're doing it. We, the whole works. So we appreciate any way that you listen to us, and continue sending emails, by the way. Really makes my day to know that we're doing something you like for us to do. And you can send an email anytime you want to Donna at donnasedge.com. That's Donna at donnasedge.com. My friend Alan Mendenhall is with us right now. And this is my finance guy right here. If it's something to do with it, I'm always questioning you about things. Even our move to South Carolina, and then we know that, there are different laws for different states, and probate and stuff like that can actually vary even within a state, within counties.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Every probate court is divided by county here. So absolutely. And probate judges in Alabama, do not have to be lawyers. Oh, wow. Very few of them are, in fact.
Uh-huh. Wow. Well, it would be good to be one because the laws change. I would find an attorney if I were you. But anyway, if we're finding things are different, in South Carolina than they are here. And I kind of like the way you buy houses there.
We still have the old-fashioned caveat emptor rule here in Alabama. So there are very minimal disclosures required of the seller.
Oh, wow. There are pages and pages of things. Even the hurricane that came through did some damage, not as bad in South Carolina as it was up in North Carolina, out on the mountains, out that area. But there are some trees down. They listed those. And so just a couple, 3 trees, not as bad as, again, our friends up in Asheville. But anyway, even those have to be disclosed. So, every little thing that possibly can happen. And it was interesting. I was talking with our realtor, who is absolutely fabulous, by the way. She's going to have a regular spot on the show once we get up there. And so, she's pretty fabulous. And she said, I just wanted to let you know that within 30 days, you've got 30 days, you can actually back out of buying a house if you want to. So if you just decide you don't like the color of the door, you can actually back out of the whole contract. And I said, it's kind of like this, Lindsay. I hate moving. I'm just not a mover. And I said, I'll paint the door myself if I don't like it. She said, just telling you everything that, that could possibly happen. And so I feel really at ease, and we're looking forward to being back into the Carolinas again. But the show's going to go on. And so Alan's still going to be a guest on the show. I know that you would hate it if he wasn't on the show, folks. So, but he is absolutely. You got a few changes going on in your life as well.
Well, that's correct. Yeah, I am currently a visiting fellow at the Heritage Foundation, but I'll be joining the Heritage Foundation full-time as of May. So at the end of the academic year at Troy, I will be joining the Heritage Foundation. My precise role and title are to be determined, but I will be joining the Heritage Foundation full-time at the end of the academic year. I still think in terms of school year, because in some ways I've never left school, as I've always either been a student or taught in some capacity. Even when I was in private practice in Atlanta, I still taught as an adjunct professor. And so in my mind, the calendar starts in August and ends in May. And then there's this little 3-month gap in between June, July. I guess it's not full 3 months, but June, July, and a piece of August, which are the summer months. But since I've been in higher education for the last, I guess this is my 9th year as an administrator, I don't really get a summer break the way faculty do, but that's nothing to complain about, because it's still a wonderful job, a wonderful position. I've loved working in higher education, but I'm excited about getting on the front line, so to speak, at the Heritage Foundation.
Well, I wanted to ask you about one other thing. By the way, this guy's a family man too. So beautiful wife, gorgeous kids, and got a new baby out there. Is that baby still keeping you up at night?
He is. He still does not sleep through the night. He gets up about every 3 hours. And in fact, last night, my wife said, I think because you're being responsive to his crying, he's not learning to sleep through the night.
That's it.
And so then at about 2 a.m., I decided to let him cry it out. And she rolled over and said, "You got to get that baby. We're never going to sleep."
I tried that too with mine. I only had the one. Of course, he's in his 40s now. And so he was the same way. I mean, all he would have to do is move, and I would jump up and run because I heard all the old wives' tales. My grandmothers were all into all the, and it would scare me to death every time he would just breathe the wrong way. And so it is best if you can tolerate it to let them just kind of cry it out. And they do get better.
Yeah, that's what everyone tells me. I'm still waiting for it to happen.
Well, okay, Dad. I know you're a great, great father and a great, great husband as well. And so we got some things. You're working on something else too. You've had a paper you've been working on.
Well, actually, the economic freedom. So I did write an op-ed over the weekend in 1819 News about the Economic Freedom of North America report, which is published by the Fraser Institute in conjunction with its various partners. Well, one of its partners is the Manuel H. Johnson Center for Political Economy at Troy University, which I direct. And this report outlines the state of economic freedom in the 50 states, but also it gives a comparative analysis of, it gives you Puerto Rico, and it gives you, as I say, North America. So it gives you Canada and Mexico and things like that. But, on economic policy, our state finds itself suspended in bureaucratic purgatory. We're not ascending to free market idealism, nor descending into regulatory torpor. We are static at 24th, meaning this disquieting symmetry where we were 24th last year, 24th this year. The good news is we are doing better than over half the states. And like Nevada, which was once right behind us last year, has fallen back a couple positions from 25th to 27th. So we're not moving in the wrong direction. We're just stuck. What was that? I'm sorry.
What's surprising? Nevada?
Yeah, Nevada fell backwards, whereas Wisconsin went from 23rd to 18th. And it is a very interesting thing. New Hampshire is the freest state. It gets an 8.12 out of 10. So it sets the gold standard for limited government, low taxation, and a labor market largely unencumbered by regulation. I think what sets us back the most is sort of our heavy bureaucracy in Alabama. That's
I agree with that.
Yeah. So one of the economists who worked on this report is named Dean Stansel. He's a friend of mine. Mm-hmm. And he says that we spend more as a percentage of our income than most other states. He says that our spending is a big problem, in part because it diverts money from private decision makers, from the private sector, who are which, depending if you're talking about an individual or an organization, spend money more carefully. Whereas if you put money in the hands of politicians, they're less careful because it's other people's money they're dealing with. And this is not a knock on the legislature so much as it is just a natural condition of economics. It's what public choice economics deals with all the time. It just says, this is what happens when government officials do stuff with other people's money. They're just generally empirically less careful with it. And so we rank among the top 6 states in transfer and subsidy spending, and our local bureaucracy is larger than all but 7 states. So that puts us at a disadvantage. We just have a lot of bureaucracy, and we need to grow our private sector. The other interesting thing is we have one of the nation's highest sales tax rates, and we really ought to reduce our income tax rate. And that's something Dean Stansel also said. Mm-hmm. There are 26 states that have reduced income taxes in recent years, and they saw employment grow 3 times faster than the least free states. So, people talk about, well, if we, reduce income tax, how will we pay for roads? How will we do this? How will we do this? Well, you do it by the economic growth. Population grew 10 times faster in those states. Employment grew 3 times faster in those states. So that's where the money comes from, is from growth. You want to facilitate growth. That's the ultimate goal, and that's how you find these ways of getting money to deal with the roads. You'll get more people, you get more industry, you get more commerce, and the rest sort of flows from that.
Mm-hmm. And with growth, as folks are making more money, they're going to spend more money. And it really works all the way around. You're going to have your penny pinchers like me. You're going to put everything they can in savings.
Right.
I mean, it's so terrible that way. But that also causes growth because you have more interest. There are a few things I would spend money on because I'm actually earning interest on a savings account right now. I know we stashed some money into Wells Fargo. And so we're at a comfortable state right now where we're making about $600 a month just on that interest.
That's wonderful. That's fantastic. And that passive investment strategy is always excellent. Yeah.
That's the best. And then we're also leading it there. So you're doing the compound interest thing,
Right.
and we were taught that back in my old days in school. And so I really listened to that. And
well, I tried to teach my daughter about compound interest. Unfortunately, I used the term compound interest. Of course, she was like 9 at the time. She's now 11, so maybe I'll try again.
Do it again.
I was trying to explain to her why it was good that we were putting her birthday money or Christmas money, whatever it was, I don't remember what it was, in the bank. And I said, look, the bank will actually pay you to keep it in there. And she's like, so we went there, and she's like, oh, that sounds great that they'll pay. So we went there, and we gave the money, and they gave us a receipt, and we walked out. She said, well, where's my money? And I said, oh, it's in the bank. And then you have to explain how, oh, really, it's just a number on a ledger now. They're going to go give that money out to somebody else. They're going to give my money to other people. I thought you said they were going to give me money. I'm like, well, they are. It's just not that exact unit of money. And then it just, so she got a bad taste in her mouth early on with banks, but hopefully she'll get over that, and we'll be able to correct and figure these things out and show her what compound interest means.
Dads need to be dads like you are, where you're teaching your kids. And I'll have to tell you a rough lesson I had when I was a kid. So I've been in business since I was about 12 years old. And I used to make a lot.
I'm not surprised by that.
Yeah, I bet you weren't. But so I always wanted to make my own way, and everything. And I guess it's from spinning off being the oldest child or whatever. And so I made love beads. And so what I would do is I would string up these little love beads. This is the 1970s thing where you would wear, your bell-bottom pants and tie-dye shirts and these little love beads. And so I wore a lot of them. I started selling them at school. So Dad buys a kit. It's a big kit just full of beads. And I probably wasn't $2 or $3, but this is back in the 1970s, you see. And so he said, okay, go for it. This your business. So you go ahead and, watch your spending, and then I didn't quite understand what he meant back then, but anyway, watch your spending. Well, man, I sold the heck out of love bead necklaces and rings and bracelets and all those things. And I said, okay, Dad, I'm ready for some more love beads. And he said, well, go get your money. And I said, but I want to buy clothes with them. And he said, you're putting it right back into your inventory.
That's
shocker, because I thought he was going to pay for my love beads the rest of my life. And he goes, no, go get your money. I will take you to town and we'll buy more love beads.
Yeah, he could say, I'm your investor. I'm your initial investor. And so I'm going to take X amount of your profits from now on.
It was great that he did that. I'm glad he didn't do it the other way. Now, at the time, my feelings were hurt, of course. He was a horrible father and all this. And but I'm glad he did it.
Yeah, well, and part of learning is getting our feelings hurt. I think that these days we are so hypersensitive as a culture, and we live in this desire to be outraged all the time, and everybody wants to be victimized. But the truth is, we have to learn from getting hurt a little bit. That's how you build up the scars necessary to be successful. You got to build thick skin, and that doesn't mean that we ought to go around being mean to one another or anything like that, but we need to tell the truth, and we need to be honest. That's what your dad was doing, is saying you don't need to be fragile. You need to be wise, and you need to understand how the process works and what to do with your money. That, to me, is great. That's a fantastic lesson.
I said, but Dad, you've got the money. I don't. He said, you got the money.
You got the money, yeah.
Another lesson, because I have so many of my friends have started businesses, and they're out of business within 2 years because they go in and they have to start with the Taj Mahal office. And I've never done that. I would go to a thrift store and buy a desk and just, good looking. I want them to look good. But what I mean is you don't have to start out at the top on expenses. That puts people out of business. And another thing that you had mentioned about the state of Alabama, and I wanted to ask you this, because we've got a lot of old money here. It's old family, it's old businesses, it's old business. Sometimes they get stale, because there's not injury. We're not learning new things and not using 8-track tapes anymore and using thumb drives is what I'm trying to say. Do you think that could be part of Alabama's problem as well?
I think so. I think that's the problem with all businesses. Eventually, they lose their competitive edge. That's why businesses are always seeking creative destruction. They're always seeking to innovate. And sometimes they innovate in the wrong way. Sometimes they'll get a CEO that wants to rebrand or redo things, and they end up being bad ideas. If you look at different airline companies, you can probably see numerous examples over the years. Or what was the Coke? What was it that the Coke thing that they did where they were holding candlelight vigils when they went to New Coke or something like that?
Yeah, oh gosh,
the 80s or something. I can't. It's been almost beyond my memory. But bad decisions get made too. But they're all opportunities to gain data about what consumers want. And yes, circumstances change, culture changes, technology changes, and businesses have to learn to adapt. And I'm sure there are certain businesses and entire industries in Alabama that are struggling to adapt. And one thing about our state that I really, really like, but that can also sometimes be problematic, is we tend to be very distrustful of outsiders. And I get it. I really do get it. And I for one am almost always against federal intervention in any policy in the terms of government. But when it comes to private industry, there are ideas out there that are good ideas. And just because somebody from another state or another region has them doesn't mean they're inherently bad. And we need to look at embracing some of those so that we can remain competitive as a state and so that we can attract more business. The other thing we tend to do is we always jump straight to government policy for a solution. We say, what are we going to do about what are we going to do about the issue where we got all these students coming to Auburn, Alabama? They're booming. Students love coming to SEC schools. Auburn, Alabama are hitting these record enrollments in consecutive years, and everyone's excited. But how do we get these people to stay in Alabama? We need to create jobs. We need to create opportunities. Well, guess what? The best way to do that isn't necessarily by instituting some government-imposed economic subsidy or incentive policy. It's to do other ways of attracting business, which is getting less government in their way, getting rid of that bureaucracy we talked about earlier, minimizing those regulations, giving equal tax incentives across the board to all businesses, not select industries. Because when government gets in the business of picking winners and losers, and invariably the losers tend to be more in terms of numbers than the winners. And we don't want politicians being in the business of picking winners and losers because they're not really the entrepreneurs. They're not really the business people. Some of them have those backgrounds, of course, but you can't be an expert in every single field or industry.
You can't. And I'm remembering when we lived in Charlotte, North Carolina for 9 years, my heart's still there, but the Chiquita Banana Company came in and they were incentivized by the city of Charlotte, North Carolina. I forgot how many millions of dollars they gave them to come bring their headquarters to Charlotte, North Carolina. Well, it was for a contract. And so my question was, well, how long is the contract? Well, the contract wasn't that long as far as I'm concerned, as far as a business person. And so my question was, well, they're just going to take the millions of dollars you're giving them. And then when that contract is over, they're going to pack everything up and move again and go to another state that's going to offer another incentive package like millions of dollars. Well, guess what? They did. They packed up and moved just as soon as that contract was over. I can't see where you get ahead.
Yeah, and that's one thing that we see is people bending over backwards to try to attract industry, and they come in and they tend to not do what they say. I know in Lowndes County, you can go around and ask people about the Hyundai plant and the agreements they had with local communities and how many people they would hire and stuff like that. And I think these local communities feel as if they've gotten the bad end of the bargain. And I've talked to a lot of people in those areas, and so all my evidence is purely anecdotal. But these things tend to happen, and I think Hyundai is doing great stuff. Don't get me wrong. I think they're bringing business and jobs, and we want them here. But we need to attract them by other means than economic subsidies and incentives.
Oh,
and I'm not saying Hyundai in particular. I don't mean to single them out. It can be any number of businesses, especially in the auto manufacturing industry.
Well, Honda in Talladega, the same thing happened. They went to Lincoln, of all places, which is about 30 miles south of Oxford, Alabama. Same deal. You know, folks were thinking, oh, man, this is really going to help the local folks here. And they wound up actually shipping more people in from other parts of the country than actually hiring local folks.
Yeah.
And we had skilled people there.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I you know, it's a tough dance because, you know, we want these businesses in there, and these businesses do come and they do spend their money in the communities, and they do pay their taxes, and they do contribute meaningfully. Mm-hmm. But the government policy is what is problematic.
Well, to quote Reagan, I mean, what's the government going to help you with? I mean, if they ever, or if it's ever about the children, or if it's ever about, I always have to dissect it and see what they're really talking about.
Yeah, well, and I always hear Margaret that, because we hear a lot of people talk about public money, spending public money. And I always hear Margaret Thatcher sort of ringing in my ears where she says, there is no such thing as public money. There's only your money. That's it. It's just taxpayer money. That's what it is.
It's absolutely perfect. I mean, and that's how it is. But I wanted to ask you another question. Okay, so we see where Alabama is on that totem pole, and it can work. I mean, we can make it happen. But what if something like fair tax or flat tax were brought in? I've done a lot of research on that. Unless I'm just looking the wrong way, it looks like the first state who actually does this will get everybody, because, I mean, especially new companies and businesses coming into to your area.
Yeah, I think when I hear fair tax, I usually hear about the national fair tax, like at the federal level. So I don't know how states have dealt with that, but I mean, what is that? It's a flat sales tax rate, you know, so
everybody pays.
That everybody pays, right?
Okay.
And it's included in the final price of everything. So let's just say it's, I don't know, 15%. If you buy $100 item, or you spend $100, you know, whatever, that's going to be $15 out of the 100 or something like that. That's the inclusive way of doing it. But what that would do is, and this is where I think people find it very attractive, is eliminate federal income taxes, Social Security and Medicare, corporate taxes, estate taxes, all that under whatever type of legislation you were to institute. And that's where I think people are very in favor of it. Now, I'll be honest, Donna, I have not spent a lot of time in tax policy. I am no tax policy expert, but I find the proposal of the fair tax to be much more attractive than what we have now. I don't know if it's the panacea that we're looking for, but it certainly seems more preferable to me than the current system.
Oh, me as well. And I'll have to tell you, Chuck and Mary Lynn Bailey are with Alabama Fair Tax. And I've been to several of the meetings, and I almost fell out of my chair when he said, you know what? Everybody pays. You know what that means? That means even drug pushers and prostitutes are going to pay, because they're really paid, without paying taxes. I mean, really, in some areas, you'll go through a high, like very, very nice area, and you'll find out, that's where the drug pushers live, because they don't pay taxes. I mean, they're selling their product and whatever, and so they're coming out ahead. People who are here illegally would also be paying just like we would be. That's what makes it attractive to me.
Yeah. No, that makes sense to me as well. And I think people who support it believe that individuals are incentivized to save their money and to invest their money because their income isn't taxed. And I think that's probably correct. I know people like you definitely who always are mindful of savings will do it. I think the people that are, more profligate will be more profligate, but it's a compelling idea.
I think it's a winner for everybody. People who love to spend money, well, it's going to help the economy too. I mean, just all the way around. So let me ask you a question, because Trump is talking about no taxes on tips. And there are little things that sound a little bit to me fair or fair taxy. You know what I mean? So some of the things that he's proposing, do you think he's looking at something like that on a national scale?
Possibly. He's the first presidential candidate. Now he's president-elect, but as a candidate in my lifetime that I can recall, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but that I can recall, who actually put on the table the possibility of eliminating the federal income tax entirely. Now, what he would do instead is impose a regime of tariffs, and that's how he would generate the revenue. Now, I don't know if that was Trump just sort of speaking off the cuff, or if he actually has a plan to institute those types of policies. I don't know. Now, what I do think is going to be the case, and I base this on the way he ran his campaign to appeal to the working class voters, is that he is going to try to look for ways to institute economic relief for service workers. Exempting tips from taxes is going to boost people's take-home pay. I think he'll look for things like that, or if tips are somehow treated under the tax code or in some other way as a gift from customers, then they wouldn't be treated as taxable income. So maybe you toy with the tax laws. I don't know. Again, I am no tax expert, so I don't want to purport to be, and I don't know how this would work or what it would look like. But I do think that Trump has turned the GOP into a party of workers and service workers, blue collar workers. I know that term sometimes seems derogatory, but it's really shouldn't be, because the allegedly blue collar workers are the backbone of the economy. I mean, they're the people on whom all industries depend. So I don't know what we'll see, but I suspect we will see something, perhaps many things.
I think we will too. I think we'll just see a huge turnaround on a lot of things. Let's go into a commercial break. We'll be right back in just a minute. Everybody hang in there.
Twin City Used Car Sales has been serving drivers in the Northeast Alabama area for years with a quality selection of late model used cars, SUVs, and pickup trucks. On top of our extensive selection and competitive prices, we offer professional auto financing services for used car buyers of all credit levels. Whether you've just begun your search or you're ready to secure your next vehicle, at Twin City Used Car Sales, you will drive away with the vehicle of your dreams. The sales and finance staff at Twin City Used Car Sales looks forward to serving you, and you can apply for financing online before your visit to our used dealership in Gadsden, Alabama. Check us out on the web at twincityusedcars.com or go by our location at 901 First Avenue, Gadsden, Alabama. We sincerely look forward to serving you. At Lamone's Mexican Restaurant, located in Henniger, Alabama, and voted Best Mexican Restaurant of DeKalb County, Alabama 2020, we're here to serve you with authentic Mexican cuisine. Order easily online by going to lamonsmex.com or call 256-657-3999 to place your order. We're open Sunday through Thursday, 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. and Friday and Saturday, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Whether you're celebrating a cozy date night for two or a celebration for a crowd, at Lamone's you'll love our atmosphere and friendly servers. Thank you for dining with Lamone's Mexican Restaurant.
Are you ready?
We all wonder what tomorrow will bring.
but the future lays itself at the feet of the prepared and surrenders to the will of the persistent. It's not easy, but today shapes you so you can shape tomorrow. With Northeast Alabama Community College, when the future asks if you're ready, you can answer
yes.
Begin your future at Northeast Alabama Community College.
Donna's Designs offers a line of handmade memorial, wedding, and keepsake jewelry that launched back in 1970. I'm a self-trained jewelry designer, and I will work closely with you to create unique designs you can love and treasure for years to come. Whether that be flowers that were used in a funeral arrangement or stones you found on the beach at a memorable trip, call me at 256-659-4319, and let's think of the possibilities.
The only place I buy my beef is Lone Tree Ranch in Collinsville, Alabama. Their cattle is born and raised on their ranch, grass and grain fed, and you can feel confident when you serve your family and friends because their beef is all natural and no antibiotics or hormones are added. You can buy whole beef or perhaps go in with family or friends and buy half. Their customer service is number one as they take care of the delivery to their local processor and can deliver to your home for a small added fee. They also offer herd replacement heifers. I always call Lone Tree Ranch in Collinsville, Alabama for my beef specialty recipes and cookouts, and you can too. Food shortages are increasing, so buy local by calling 256-523-6462. That's 256-523-6462. At Liberty Bank, we're all about community, whether it's to help with a charity fundraiser or help families in need. Toys at Christmas or a local football team, we're here for you. You see, we realize the importance of family. Sometimes it's to build a new home or necessary home repairs. We're here for you. If you like the feel of a small town bank with all the conveniences of a big city bank, we're here to serve you. You will find us at any of our convenient locations in DeKalb, Marshall, Etowah, and Blount counties in North Alabama. You can call and speak with any of our friendly staff at 256-659-2175 or check us out on the web at libertybankal.com. And thank you for your support of our community. Member FDIC Equal Housing Lender.
Good afternoon. We're back. My name is Donna, and I'm your host of Donna's Edge Talk Show, where truth matters, going on 20 years. So actually, April the 1st of next year will be 20 years. Can you believe April 1st? Well, why would I choose that day?
Yeah, I know. I don't even know if you're telling the truth or not.
It's just like, I know that's the whole thing. So it was a joke. Tom Williams was my first boss, and as far as it comes to this type business. And so Tom said, I think we need the April 1st. And I went, is this a joke? And he said, no, you need to do April 1st. He said, he said, trust me in this. This is going to work. And I said, so I've got to jump the hurdle. First of all, I'm going to forget my name once I get on the air because I've never done anything like this before. And he said, just have the show and let it be about your guests. It's not going to be about you. So that's one less hassle for you to have to worry about. Perfect. Because I have the absolute best guest, and Alan Mendenhall is one of them. He's been with me for a long time, and it really takes the edge off of me.
Well, we've been doing this about 8 years. I was thinking about it the other day. I remember Brent Woodall was the person that connected us to begin with, and I think he was still in Chip Beaker's office in those days. And he's the one that connected us, and we talked about at that time. It may have been our first call. We talked about Trump and his transition team and the people he was appointing. And now we've gone through an entire Trump administration plus a Biden administration. And now we've seen Trump elected again. It's funny how fast time goes.
Wow. It just flies by. And I'm going to tell you what really helped. I think what helped Brent is I said, Brent, I want you to come to the farm. You know, we've had COVID and all this stuff has hit. So, you know, because I have asthma, you know, we're actually studios out on the farm. And he said, what are we going to do? And I said, we're going to make biscuits. And he said, I'm running for office. And I said, but you're going to bake biscuits. I want people to know the real Brent. I think the real Brent's quite the guy.
Oh,
And
he's a
I
funny
said, we
guy.
want people to see the real Brent. Sure enough, it worked. I mean,
Yeah, how are his biscuits? That's what I want to know. How are his biscuits?
when you see him, ask him about. But he's probably
I
a biscuit king by now. But anyway, I had him in my country kitchen baking biscuits,
Oh,
and,
that's
and
great.
then it's like all the politicians wanted to do it. What can we bake? I mean, so I had one making jam.
Oh my goodness.
It was just, and they all won. And so, it was just like people need to see the real you. People are
Yeah.
tired of fake.
Well, and that's what Trump did very well in the campaign trail. We talked about this in a previous episode, I know, but when he put on the apron at McDonald's, and when he put on whatever the orange vest is that the garbage truck workers wear, and came up in the garbage truck. How brilliant was that? But he also kept his coat and tie on because he maintained authenticity about who he was. It was sort of a throwback to the old European noblesse oblige idea, where he knew who he was, but he was a man of the people too. He was speaking for the people, and he was their champion. It was brilliantly done. Unlike, the politicians that throw on a hoodie and play video games to make themselves look as though they're one of the guys, or they put on their camo and go hunting and like Walt did. And
they don't even know how to hold a gun. That's how I can know you're fake.
Exactly.
Like,
And they know
never held a gun before. It's so obvious.
Well, and remember Chuck Schumer and when he put the grill on 4th of July and he's holding, there are no flames, the grill's off. And there's like a piece of raw meat and a piece of cheese on the grill. Like, are you going to grill the cheese with the meat?
All down in your, the real people know that.
And it's so ridiculous. It has the opposite of its intended effect. It shows how aloof these people are and how disconnected they are from the quotidian experiences of regular, ordinary Americans.
Well, the master of marketing, you don't go against the master, and that's what Trump is. And there was Kamala constantly doing stupid stuff. She said that she was from a middle-class neighborhood. And did she not know that photos of where she grew up were going to come out there? It looked like a castle. Yeah. There is no way that she's middle. I grew up in the middle income. And we always were paying bills and stuff. But what I mean is it was hardworking middle class. And when you are hardworking middle class, you're going to see through the fake. You'll just see that. And saying she worked at McDonald's. And so you say you work at McDonald's. Well, what's Trump going to do? He's going to put on the McDonald's apron. He's going to go
exactly right.
Fries, burgers, and all this kind of stuff. And that's what got him elected. So all those things they tried to do to knock him. And then to call us all the names they called us.
Oh, I know.
We're garbage,
Just please. Whatever next signifier for deplorable, whatever that is, the basket of deplorables, you just pick a signifier and throw it in that.
And so, but real people who work and who have jobs and we're making it work because they work hard. They didn't appreciate that at all. So I even got one of those little vests. So Phil and I got the flu, but anyway, Phil and I were actually going to go out and take the garbage out and do a video, but that didn't work out. So,
well, I have a friend who, and he's an attorney, and he went to the voting booth wearing a trash bag.
There you go. See what I mean?
Yeah.
And I just found it all interesting how sometimes people will cater when they're in politics. They'll cater to a particular group. And so my son lives in Raleigh, North Carolina. He's got a lot of black friends. And so he said before he didn't wear a Trump hat and stuff because he just didn't want to get people started. But when he went to vote, of course, he had his Trump hat on, my son, and his shirt and all that. He said, Mom, you'd be amazed at the black guys who had Trump hats on and Trump shirts. So there was a guy behind him, and my son makes friends with everybody. He's just got that thing about him. And so he turned around at the black guy and said, hey, I like your Trump hat. And so he said, the black guy said, well, I hope you're voting Trump. And he said, yeah, I'm voting Trump. He was like the black guy was very matter of fact about it. He said, we're doing Trump.
Yeah, well, Trump made electoral inroads with both black and Hispanic men. He grew in basically every category where Republicans have underperformed. And, I know a lot of college football athletes because they're in my classes or, they're athletes here at Auburn, and I see them at the golf course, which is right near my backyard, or other areas around town. And, these men have no interest in having, playing in women's sports, or, are using women's bathrooms, or doing the transgender stuff, or gender fluidity, or any form of that type of issue that was highlighted by Democrats. I think the Democrats were so out of touch with the basic male voters, let alone male voters of particular ethnicities. I don't think these things really are confined to ethnic categories. I mean, these sort of transcend those racial boundaries, and they're not black-white issues, which is what I kind of see happening gradually as the Democrats become the party of which race box are you, as if your race determines how you must think, as if race is the sum of your identity. We're seeing a transformation where the Republican Party is treating individuals as individuals with their own agency, respecting their intelligence to choose issues because they believe in a particular principle, and not because, they're this race, so they must think this way. They're that race, so they must think that way. That's actually the way the Democrats are treating human beings. And it's far more racist than saying, look, we're going to look at you as a human being who can make his or her own intelligent decisions based on whatever slate of options are given to you. And we respect your decision, whatever it is. And we know that it's not because of the color of your skin, which is a surface level characteristic and a mutable characteristic that you didn't choose, but it's because of your experiences and what you've learned along the way, and what you've gained through conversations with other people, and treating people as intelligent human beings rather than as mere products of a racial background.
Yeah, and you're treating me like I'm a product. Why don't you go ahead and put a brand on me like I'm a cow?
Yeah, Donna, you're a woman, so you have to vote this way. And you have to believe this about abortion.
That's so wrong.
It's very wrong.
It's very wrong. And to give you an example, I have a friend who's just a crazy liberal. I mean, she's a hack liberal. She's nuts. And so she asked me she said, okay, what would you do if two lesbians came into your church? And I said, nothing. And she just looked at me funny, and she was expecting me to say I'd run them out or something. And I said, I wouldn't do a thing. They need to be there, like I need to be there. I mean, people need to be in church. You need to be able to do that. And I said, I believe in the freedom, And so they have us all in this category like we're just haters. We hate people because they believe this differently than we do. And that my only thing is people who are coming here for the subsidies. I do have a problem with that. Sure. But most of them were actually on Trump's side.
Yeah. Well, I think, one of the issues is the subsidies themselves, because what's incentivizing people to come? If they didn't have those incentives, maybe they wouldn't come. On the other hand, we have the greatest country in the world, and we are economically powerful. And so there are reasons why people want to come to America. It's because we have been great, and we need to retain whatever qualities and characteristics have made us great, rather than dispensing with them or throwing them out or tearing them down. We need to double down on those things. And we're not perfect. We're obviously always open to correction and in need of fine tuning. That's what you need to do, is how do you, as we talked about with businesses, how do you pour old wine into new wineskins, right? The old wine, the older the wine, the better. You just need new wineskins for them. So what are the vehicles under our current technological and cultural realities to preserve what is worth preserving and innovate where we need to innovate? And that's a difficult thing to do, and every generation has to grasp at those questions. But it does not help to just try to throw the baby out with the bathwater, or pretend that that 90% of American history is just all some generic bad.
Mm-hmm. And to give you an idea, I love cooking. I mean, whatever nationality. And my daughter-in-law is actually from Russia. And so what she brings to the table, it's amazing. She completes our family. But I will tell you this. She was 9 years old when she was brought here. She's an American citizen. She believes everyone should go through the same hurdles she went through, and I totally agree with her. And she said, the things, and she feels a better person because she jumped through those hurdles. She knows more American history than we do. And
Yeah.
I'm a study. I love American history, but she knows more than we do. But it's people like her who came in the right way. But I love ideas of people from other countries.
Yeah, well, and there's a particular visa requirement for professionals and for experts. And clearly, we want to welcome those people who are coming in and helping us with science and technology and big key industries. And we want those people to study here, and we want those people to learn what freedom looks like. So if they do go back to their country, they can say, hey, everything you're saying about America doesn't really align with my experience. And that's great. What we don't need is as mass migration of people that become wards of the state and people who fall into sex trafficking, people who fall into crime, people who become destitute, people who become dependents. That does not help those people. Those people are not better off from their move. And we need to figure out a system that works best for as many people as possible. Obviously, immigration is an incredibly difficult issue to find out what is the perfect thing. Like, what's the perfect balance? How do you get it perfect so just the right amount of people come in and just right? You're never going to get that formula because it doesn't exist. But we do need to do much, much better with our immigration policy.
Well, how about this? How about you buy their first set of love beads when they're making their necklace?
And there you go.
After that, they buy their own. That way, they're going to take more care of it. I promise you. When I was 12 years old, when I had to buy my own beads, I was much more effective with keeping them together.
Well,
because I had the money put in it.
That's right. And in general, we as a culture have become so knee-jerk about our reliance on state-based or government solutions.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at 19th century America, when the American economy just skyrocketed and there were all kinds of new opportunities, yes, people were left out of that experience based on horrible things like their race, and there was slavery. But because of the explosion in these areas, we were able to end those institutions and end that type of discrimination. And it was hard and it took a while. It didn't happen in the 19th century, but it created the conditions necessary for those things to happen later on. But what you look at is that communities were looking out for communities. You had mediating institutions, churches and clubs and fraternal organizations. And these were where people got things like health insurance. And they didn't look first and foremost to the state to provide everything. They looked at their neighbors, they looked at their friends, they looked at their churches, they looked at their communities. And everybody tried to find solutions that involved private industry rather than just saying, well, government's the only answer.
Well, back in the day, people had their own trades. I've heard my grandparents talk about this. And so people had their own, there was the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker. And that person was really good at what they did. And they would hire apprentices. And those people would actually learn from they would learn the skill from whoever they were apprentices for. Whatever it was, working with steel, working with whatever, the person who made the wagon wheels or whatever. They all had their own, and they worked out of their homes for the most part, which I find very interesting, which is what a lot of us are going back to right now, work out of my home.
That's right. And no, you're exactly right. And that's a great way to eliminate the burdens of college expenditures, which have skyrocketed. Tuition costs are ridiculously high right now, and there's no excuse for it. Part of the reason is because of the ready availability of federal student loan money over the years enabled universities to hike tuition costs and just take federal dollars because they knew students were going to keep going to college and they were not having to pay for it. And so, the way the cost of college skyrocketed is really unparalleled in any other industry.
I would like to see, and I'm actually thinking about beginning in kindergarten, where you actually teach kids what overspending is. Mm-hmm. The difference between debits and credits. Those are really essential. If you can only know one thing in accounting, debits and credits, where you can't. But if you're constantly getting government subsidies and I believe in government subsidies, but I don't think it should be a career choice.
Right.
I think it should be. I literally believe in it. There are a lot of folks. Sometimes it could be a divorce. It could be like a death in the family. It could be a lot of things where people just need a little helping hand, but not forever. I'm talking about, but learning a skill at the same time. And I would love to see Alabama, the state of Alabama, be the shining light up on the hill who put something together like that. Where, okay, you're getting subsidies, but now you're required to take, and it would be free. You're required to take tests. You're required to learn a skill. These things are extremely important, especially in the manufacturing world.
Mm-hmm,
things are sent overseas.
Well, and a lot of people don't like school at a young age, and they know early on, hey, I'm not going to go be a college professor. I'm not going to be a lawyer. I'm not going to be an accountant. I just want to go out and make money. And those people ought to be able to do that. The earlier, the better, and start making a living. And, I think somebody probably of my generation, I'm 41. So I know a lot of people who are doctors and lawyers and got into deep, deep amounts of debt, hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt. And there are people that are our age today who went straight into trades, and they have far more money than the doctors and lawyers because they didn't go into any debt. And they the 4 years that other people were not earning money, they were in college spending money, they earned money and they got a big head start, and it only propelled them from there.
I know actually welders who are millionaires.
Yeah. Oh,
because
sure.
they did the right thing with it.
Yep. And that's the other thing. Once you have money, if you know how to invest it, you know how not to waste it, you could become a millionaire. It's possible.
I have to tell you something I learned from my grandmother. So she always liked a nice kitchen, because that was her heart. She loved to cook. That's where I get it. I love cooking. But the kitchen had to look spot on. I mean, it really did. So she was thinking about getting granite countertops. Her color was red. She loved red on everything. And my granddad said, okay, Sybil, you can have anything you want. If you want red, we'll do red. But now I know how you are about style colors. Is red always going to be a style color? Because we're going to spend a lot of money on this granite. Is red always going to be your color? And also, whoever winds up with this house, one of the grandkids or whatever, did they like red countertops? Because that's a lot of money to spend. So spending it wisely on things. Granite countertops are awesome. But what I learned from that was something neutral. And it's easier to change the color of the wall than it is granite countertops. But it's little lessons like that need to be taught to kids.
Yeah. And my mom's a real estate agent, and she likes to tell people about the different upgrades you can do to a home that add value to it versus the things that don't. Putting in granite countertops is probably a positive upgrade to a house, and it's going to add value. But as you say, if you make it chartreuse or something, if it makes it, that's not going to add value to your house. Painting your house is great, but if you paint your house, purple with pink polka dots, probably not going to help the value.
Probably not. I have a friend who's such an avid Alabama fan, and their house is like it's ridiculous. It's and you know who I'm talking to, Rex. So they have like everything is Alabama. It's like everything. The colors of the house and the inside and out is. And I said, you must never. I guess you're never going to move. And they looked at me funny. And I said, because it would only be an Alabama fan who would buy this.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, if they live in Tuscaloosa, it may not hurt.
Odds are. But it's just choosing things wisely. And I'm just going to say this. I'm going to throw this out there. So Phil and I have been doing a study on Proverbs for years. And I love it. And we get these little tidbits. It'll be some tiny little thing you'll get out of it that you never got from reading the absolute same verse 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's just so amazing. And part of it is keeping your peace and keeping quiet. Because I don't know how many business deals I have seen gone because somebody got outraged and said something that they couldn't put back into their mouth again. And it ruined the deal. Sure. And that's one of the things that I picked up from that is holding it.
And that's something I struggle with, is somebody whose job is to talk a lot. at either give speeches or go on these shows. There's no. I'm sure I've said things that
you haven't. It's always been a case.
Ripped from context, they may look bad, but in their context, they're probably not so bad. But I've said things, I'm sure, on different programs that I regret now. In fact, I know I could think of one where I was talking about state pension money being subject to ERISA when it's not. So I could think of one right offhand. That was a mistake I made in an interview where I was just making an off-the-cuff comment before I really thought it through. Like, ooh, wait, does ERISA apply to that? No, it doesn't. Darn. But these things happen.
Those things do happen. I'll have to tell you something that happened. This is like from about the first couple of years of the show. So I had a co-host who sometimes didn't watch what she said. I mean, she would just say, and well-meaning, I mean, absolutely wonderful girl. We're still friends, And so, but this is 18 years ago. And so we had a sponsor who did our hair. And this guy was all about, the Redken products and those kinds of things. And so he was talking about the Redken products. And she said, well, why could you buy at Walmart that would be kind of the same, like that, but would be much cheaper? I looked up and I saw the guy who owned the station, and he looked at me like, you better get out of this one. And so the only thing I could think of to say, you have to think quick when you have people like that as a co-host. And so I said, great idea. That's a great question. We're going to go into a commercial break. We'll be right back in just a minute. So when we came back, I'm looking at my boss. I'm looking at the sponsor is right there. They're both looking at me like they could kill me for saying that. So when we came back in, I said, she had an awesome question. And this was about how to save money on product. So actually, using the Redken products, you are saving money because it's not watered down. So it's much better than something cheap you would get at a department store. I looked up at my boss. He was up in this little room and he went, phew. And then I looked at the sponsor like, I'm still your sponsor. I mean, he said that. So sometimes you can just kind of turn things around. And that saves her. And I didn't want her to look stupid because she's not a stupid person. She just said something that was a bit off the cuff. And so that saved everybody, because I was able to think, about, how can we handle this? How can we carry this over? But I'm just going to tell you that 5-minute commercial break seemed like 30 minutes. I mean, it was just like, oh my God, what am I going to say when I get back in? But again, and this is coming from Proverbs, where you can just kind of think about it. And again, I've seen so many business deals. I've seen people lose farms. I've seen people lose because they said the wrong thing. And that's why it brought me back to the farm again, because Alabama is known as farm country. Because of taxes, a lot of families want to keep the family farm going, but they can't because of inheritance taxes. What does Alabama need to work on as far as that is concerned? Folks would stay here if they could keep the farm.
Yeah, that's right.
I think I'm going right back again to fair tax.
Yeah. No, I think you're right.
Money with fair tax. I'm just saying it makes sense to me. That would take away those dreadful taxes.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And I think, as we mentioned at the beginning of the show, eliminating bureaucracy, less reliance on government, all these things would help our economy. And the more you attract businesses through natural means, i.e. not by directing subsidies to particular industries at the expense of other industries, by the way, the more you let the natural economic flow take place, the way Texas, Florida, Tennessee have done, the more you're going to generate revenue in other areas.
Oh my goodness! Think of the Black Belt. The Black Belt has the most fertile farmland anywhere, but the kids are moving away for better opportunities. I would like to see the state of Alabama do something to help the Black Belt. I think that would be a great incentive. It would bring people in, families would stay. You wouldn't have to worry about the kids moving away. It would just be do you know that this place could be the catfish farm of the United States? I know. And we have such agricultural opportunity. We have a lot of land that could be used for wonderful ways. And we have a promising future. I'm telling you, we do have a promising future in this state. I think so too. Alan, we're going to have to call it a day. Thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you for all of your research and everything you do and everything you bring to the show. It's so important and folks love you. And I wanted to propose this to everybody. If you have any questions for Alan next time he's on the show, hang around and get you set up for January. But if you have any questions for him, you can send an email to me, Donna@donnasedge.com, Donna@donnasedge.com, because this guy's got a brain. So let's pick it a little bit more. Brain. Thank you so much, Alan. And take care of those kids. And thank you guys so much for watching. You can find us on television, Channel 182 Charter, and also on Abundant Television Syndicated, found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. And don't forget the podcast on thenewscasters.com. And by the way, Alan, I hope we're going to get you on the Newscasters. Just my little thing. I think you'd be great. But thank you all. Hope you have a wonderful rest of the day.